So, so we should be live now. And I'm going to just start sharing my screen, which means I can't do anything for 7 minutes. But I'd rather do that than have something go wonky. Okay. Oh, wait, Jeremy goes first. Okay, so I should stop. Jeremy's not on yet. Here's, okay. And check my phone to see what's going on. You folks don't see my screen, right?
Yeah, we can see it.
Oh, okay. Yep. Okay, great. It's really confusing because there's a camera button that I unmuted, but which I don't know what it actually does. It's really weird. It looks like if it's sensing somebody else talking, it takes out my screen. But anyways, so Jeremy, I think you're going first, so I will stop sharing my screen, and I'll let you share your screen, Jeremy, and I will mute myself. So Jeremy, you can go ahead and start when in 4 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, Victor, I'm going to share my screen real quick. Will you just verify? Can everyone? I'm curious to know what everyone else sees.
I have, yeah, it's really confusing, Jeremy, and there's also a delay. So I have my phone open, so I'm streaming YouTube on my phone, and I think you're on mute or some. Yeah, so okay. I'll go ahead and share your screen, Jeremy, and I can see on my phone what the rest of the world sees.
Okay, so I'm sharing my screen right now.
For me, I just get the Google loading icon at the moment, and you've been sharing since quite some time now.
Oh wow, that's not good.
I'll refresh.
I see your screen, Jeremy, but whenever somebody else talks, that person jumps in briefly, which is really weird. So okay. I think if everybody is not talking and the person presenting is talking, it should be fine in theory. So with 3 minutes, I would recommend that's what we do.
Okay, but just to verify, I'm going to try screen sharing again, and can you just verify that you actually see the content? So what do you see right now?
That's your Chrome window now.
Explore DevOps 4. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, but I think that Victor makes a good point that as soon as anybody else talks, it's switched to their video. So let's be mindful with the with the muting.
I'm just quickly trying to do the same.
All right. I have 9 a.m. Pacific time on my end, so let's go ahead and get things kicked off. I'm super excited to get things kicked off for the kickoff for GitLab 11.5. We have a lot of amazing content to get through, so without further ado, let's jump right in. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and you should be able to see the kickoff document in front of me. So I'm Jeremy, the PM for Manage, and I'm going to talk briefly through the issues that we have planned for 11.5. The first one I'm excited to talk about is exploring cycle time relationship with ConDev index. So currently we have a ConDev index, which kind of gives you a high-level indication of how engaged your instance is with GitLab's sorted features. What we want to be able to do is we want to be able to show a clear relationship that as you get further invested in GitLab, you actually ship software faster and provide instances with suggestions and highlights and opportunities of how they can invest deeper in GitLab and actually ship software faster. Super excited about this one. We're going to this will likely ship the full version of this in 11.6, but we're excited to get started on this and explore how we can actually show this relationship in instance statistics. The other two issues that we're excited to dig into that we've announced in previous release kickoffs is registering and logging in and using smart cards or common access cards to actually authenticate with GitLab using a physical token, and also sharing groups with groups, which is another permissions kind of level feature that we're really excited about. The other two features that I wanted to kind of mention quickly are improvements to how we bill for GitLab. The first one is adding the subscription table to GitLab.com billing, so we can make billing and showing your GitLab.com subscription really, really clear, understandable, and easy, and be able to see that right in your billing section of .com. We're going to take this table and we're going to also apply it to self-hosted as well, to make license and kind of revamp and give the license area of the GitLab, your GitLab instance, a new look. This is going to make licensing very much easier to understand. It's going to make the experience a lot better for our customers, and hopefully make both of these aspects of GitLab improve the user experience for all of our users. But that's just the first half of what we got announced. Andreas, over to you. I know you've got some really exciting user improvements as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy, for that. Let me share my screen as well. So continuing with Manage, I want to highlight the UX improvements that we are working on for 11.5 in the current release cycle. So starting with our top navigation, we currently plan to add a lot of new items, which is currently living in our user menu, to really lower the barrier what it takes to contribute to GitLab. So one idea that we have is we want to introduce a new WhatsApp section that just links to the release post of your current version. And because we know that the user menu is growing more and more, we figured out that we have to do something there to improve that. So we kickstarted a UX research, knowing that the navigation is a very sensitive topic. But we are now confident to move forward with adding a new help icon right next to the user menu. So that's what you can see here in that detail. And that menu will host a couple of items that are either already existing, like our help and the contribute to GitLab link, plus additional items that we're going to add in the next few releases. So as I mentioned, the WhatsApp what's new section is one of them that we going to add in this release as well. Moving to our project overview UI. So in 11.3, we already added a iteration that improved a lot of areas there as well. At the same time, typical GitLab fashion, we knew that this is only the first iteration. And while we were working on that, we already covered a lot of areas that we want to improve as well. So this is what we're going to happen and work on for 11.5. You can see all the screens in the linked issues. So this is one example how the new UI will look like on just a very full spec project. So I hope we improve the information structure and logical grouping here even further. Next up are our dashboards. So from my perspective, previously our dashboards didn't receive much UI love. So they've been looking the same. It's not very clear what is the focus area of that. So that's something I want to tackle with 11.5 as well. And we're starting with the activity dashboard plus the project list. So the main focus, and those are also, again, UX research backup. We did surveys to figure out what are the most relevant information, and introducing more differentiation in the UI. We are confident that we want to improve and that we'll achieve to improve the focus and better visualization of the most important items there. So that's the visual design that we have for the activity dashboard. And at the same time, we're going to work on improving the project list as well. So that's on the one side, the dashboard view we have, but there will also be a more condensed view, and I can show you a quick example here. So this is the redesigned profile page that we will ship with 11.4. And one part that is available here is that you get a quick preview of your personal projects. And for that, we needed a more condensed version of that. So there will be 2 new components there. With that, I'm happy to move to Victor.
Thanks, Andreas. So I'm sharing my screen now, and you should be able to see the items that we have planned in the plan stage of DevOps. So really quickly, we have promote issue to Epic with quick action. So we've been iterating like mad with epics and roadmaps in the past year overall. And so we want to make it really easy to reduce the friction using epics. And one way to do that is just to convert an issue to an epic. And so this is our very first iteration, and we're going to achieve it using a quick action. So copying many of the fields from an issue and turning it into a new epic. Email notification for closing an epic. We just released closing epics in 11.4, and that's really exciting. And we wanted to make a lot of that functionality in parity with the rest of GitLab, including email notifications. Automatically navigating to the last board that you visited. So with issue boards, there's a lot of in a given board UI, whether it's group boards or project boards, you might see a lot of different boards, especially if you're working in GitLab. We use many boards, so it'll be really helpful so that you don't have to always scroll that long list and go back to the board you were previously at. Chances are you just want to go back to the board you previously looked at, and so this will allow you to do so with zero work. You just go back to the last board by clicking through the navigation. Redesign of issue list and related issues and epic issues. This is our very first step, and it's a really simple iteration in particular. As you see here, what we did is we just flattened the, so I apologize, clicking around here. If I open this one really quickly, you'll see that what we did, it doesn't look like much, but what we did is we're saving some extra space. So now it's just 1 row instead of 2 rows. And so that allows us in the future to add a lot more elements. So we're doing that for related issues and also for the issues within an epic, as you see there. And then the redesign of comments and system activities. Sorry, I missed one. Email notification for changing milestone and issue and merge request. So this is a really big one, especially for folks working at GitLab. Whenever our issues change milestones, because we change really quickly, and we want to reflect that to all users. Everybody on the public internet is able to see our latest plans. But that also means that it's hard for people to keep up on what's changing and what are the issues that are changing milestones from day to day. And so this will help with that by sending an email notification. The last couple are things that we've worked on in the past, and unfortunately we didn't have time to finish. The redesign of comments and system activities is something that we wanted to do earlier. We couldn't find time, and now we finally found time in 11.5. So we're excited. So you can see this design. The comment thread is revamped, and it's going to look amazing, in my opinion. Filter tab by comments or activity and issues and merge requests. That's something we talked about last iteration. For 11.4, unfortunately, it didn't make it. So we're really close. and it should be merged relatively soon, early in the 11.5 release. Similarly, for the issue board card redesign, again, you see on the screen right now, this has been ongoing work, and we're excited to finish it up early in the 11.5 cycle. James, you're up.
Thanks, Victor. I'll share my screen quickly. All right. We have quite a few exciting improvements coming in 11.5. And the first I'd like to share is previewing comments for the new batch comments feature that's being introduced in 11.4. It's really great. So when you add multiple comments to your review and you click Finish Review, you'll now be able to preview your comments. And this will really streamline the batch commenting process and make comprehensive code reviews even easier and better in GitLab. I'm very excited about that improvement coming to GitLab Premium. Also, we're continuing to iterate on approvers based on code owners. So in 11.3, we introduced our first support for code owners, and then in 11.4, we've extended that to automatically suggest approvers when you're creating and editing a merge request. And in this next iteration, we're just going to take it a step further and automatically assign the correct approvers based on the code owners that you've specified in your code owners file. So that'll be a really great improvement for anyone who's using code owners files, and that's coming to Starter Edition. The next feature is really exciting and is much requested, and it's about keeping email addresses private in GitLab. We've had a community contribution that helps control which email address is used for commits when committing through the web interface, and we're going to be extending that with further support for no reply email addresses. So you'll be able to use a GitLab no reply email for your web commits and also your local commits, which will keep your email address completely private when using GitLab. Another big improvement coming to Community Edition is the ability to comment on any line in a merge request. So this is using the exact same merge request interface that we already have, but when you expand the diff to see more context around it, you'll now be able to comment on unchanged lines as well. And this is really the first step in what are a set of improvements coming to merge requests that are allowing you to comment on absolutely anything in the project, any file, any line. But the first iteration is just any line in a changed file. And finally, for people who take advantage of the mirroring feature, push mirroring now will soon support SSH-based mirroring using public key authentication, not just username and password. So great features. And Andreas, what are you working on with Geo?
Thanks, James. So we are constantly improving our Geo feature. I want to quickly highlight the objectives that we have for 11.5. So we continuously work on rolling out our hash storage support to achieve general availability. And I hope to achieve that in the next few months, ideally by end of this year. On top of that, we identified and are working on optimizing relevant SQL queries. So we had a look what are the queries in the Geo context that we can optimize. They are not the fastest. And we're going to work on these to bring up things to performance. And on top of that, we will put quite some effort into improving the Geo documentation to simplify setting up an administration of the Geo scenarios and all the features that Geo supports. So all this will come to GitLab Premium in 11.5. Jason, you're next up.
Hey, everybody. Let me share my screen here. All right. So on the verify side, just a couple items here to quickly go through. First is that we're adding parallel keyword to split your CI tests automatically. So what that'll do is allow you to set a parallelization factor for certain jobs, particularly ones oriented around tests, that will parallelize those jobs and run them for you. So that'll be a big performance improvement to teams that are doing a lot of testing. And then we're also making an improvement to the way that our GitHub integration works. So GitHub status checks depend on there being a consistently named reference. So we're adding the ability to configure that consistently named reference so that the GitHub status checks work. And that's it for the Verify team this release. So I'll turn it over to Josh.
All right, thank you. Go ahead and share my screen here. And we can talk about the package management features that we'll be shipping. We're going to focus on doing some prototyping work to plan out how we can achieve hopefully NPM integration, right? So last release, we shipped our first iteration of our Maven solution, which was great. And we were able to ship a great MVC where people could deploy and push packages to Maven and share it within their company. And we want to move on to also now trying to look at NPM as well, being sort of our next item in the stack here. So we're doing some work there, trying to figure out if we should kind of build this, how it should look, how it should work, if we can perhaps integrate some open source solutions to go more quickly. So we're kind of doing that work now, and hopefully we can perhaps ship something, but if not, we'll be well set to have a good base foundation to go forward here and build out that NPM integration that quite a lot of folks are looking for within GitLab. So with that, that's the major item for our packaging team, and we'll move on to back to Jason for release.
Hey there. So let me share my screen again, and we'll just quickly chat about these couple items here on the release side. So first is showing better information about the running deployment in the merge request. So there's a lot actually that goes into what we're going to show about what's being deployed where, to which environments, and so on. But one really cool feature that we're really excited about is that it's going to give you a link to the review app for the environment that's that was the previous one. Right now, that link is hidden whenever a deployment is running. So you just have to wait for the next environment to come up. But that other environment is still up, and so will allow you to go there and still see what was there for the last deploy, which is a very handy feature. And then the other thing that we're doing is making it so that on that same page, the review app, if you're working on an HTML site or a site that uses templates or anything like that, it will offer to link you directly to the pages that change. So if you updated a subpage or a blog post somewhere on your site, when you click on that review app link, it'll take you directly to the blog post that you changed. So another one that we're really excited about that's going to make the feature a lot nicer to use. So over to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Jason. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Okay, so for 11.5, the configure team is excited to begin work on group-level Kubernetes clusters. This will give users the option to configure a single cluster, which then can be leveraged across all the projects associated with that particular group. So basically, on the group screen, we're aimed to show a dedicated section for your clusters, and then at your project, you will be able to see, as you do now, all the clusters that are associated with it, and you will be able to tell if it's group cluster or project level cluster. Next, we're going to work on the ability to configure auto DevOps deployed applications with secrets that are not part of your repo. So for example, your application running on the Kubernetes cluster may need a secret or a token to access a particular API or third-party service. So for security purposes, we don't want to store this secret in the repo. And in short, this will allow you to configure those secrets to be used on your applications running on your Kubernetes cluster. And finally, we are working on extending our Kubernetes RBAC implementation to create service accounts that are restricted only to a project's namespace. So as you know, as part of 11.4, we're rolling out RBAC support for Kubernetes. And instead of having a limited service account to manage the cluster, the service account will be implemented per project. So the service account will have access to that namespace only, and thus will be more secure. And that does it for the configure team. Josh, on to you.
All right, thanks, Daniel. Let me go ahead back and share things here. All right, so the monitoring team, we have a couple items that we want to achieve here this release. The first one is you want to ship the sort of first iteration of our tracing integration, and we're going with Jaeger for our tracing solution. And so we want to be able to offer users an easy way to view tracing within GitLab and be able to start to kind kind of have an integrated solution for that story as well. Again, probably a small iteration going forward here. We'll let you try to embed some of the UI within the workflow of GitLab, and that'll be an easy way to sort of make it easier for folks to access that content without having to open a new tab or open a bookmark or things like that. So again, hopefully here to try and make things a little easier for our users on the monitoring side. We're also going to try to finish up 2 items that we unfortunately weren't able to ship last release. That's the operations homepage and the support for the new metrics from the new Nginx Ingress. And so we'll go ahead and wrap those up this release and get them out the door. We got quite close on both of these, but unfortunately just couldn't quite get them done in the last release. And finally, we'll also be addressing Firefox support for our metrics dashboard. Turns out there's an SVG rendering issue in Firefox, and we'll be working around that to have this be able to be seen with folks who prefer to use that particular Firefox browser. So that's kind of the main agenda items there, with the kind of marquee item here being the tracing MVC, and then also another key item being the operations homepage, which will be quite exciting to actually get out there and make it available for folks to try. With that, I'll pass over to Fabio to talk about what's new in security.
Thank you, Josh. Let's see what's new in security, in the secure team, actually, in 11.5. So let's see the kickoff doc. And the first item I want to talk about is the group level security dashboard. This is something very important that the team is working. If you attended the previous meeting, you may remember that it was announced in 11.4, but that was quite hard. And we found some blockers during our development. And so we are not able to ship it in 11.4, even if a lot of code has been merged already into the master branch. So in 11.5, we will continue this effort, and we are gonna finish the story and ship the very first iteration on the dashboard. Later releases will contain other improvements to the dashboard. Just to remember, for people that are not confident with this dashboard, the group level dashboard is the very first feature to allow security teams and director of security to jump into things that have to be considered for securing their projects. So it's not intended mainly for developers, like all the other features are, but we want to focus on this new persona. You can see the screenshot, that is the mockup that we're using to implement the dashboard. There are counters at the top to have a very high-level overview on security of the group. And then you have the list of issues ordered by severity. So when you jump in the board and you are a security specialist, you want to know what is most important to work on first, you can pick up the first item in the list. From this list, obviously, you can create an issue, you can dismiss the item, you can see more information. The second item we want to talk about is a suggest fix for dependency scanning for the Gymnasium tool. This is very important because this is the very first step to implement auto-remediate. That is our way to provide an automatic fix for a security vulnerability in your code. This first step is about getting which is the best version to update your code if the version you're using actually is vulnerable to something. So let's assume that you're using version 1 and version 1 is spotted as vulnerable to something. The system is able to know, given the data that we have in our databases, that version 3 is the good version that is still compatible with version 1 and also not vulnerable. And so it will provide this information in the issue that you can create from the vulnerability, giving you a very important suggestion how to fix your code. In the future, this information will be used to automatically create actually the fix, so changing the code. But this is for a later iteration. The security team is also working on a lot of other backstage things to remove the requirements and unlock all the other features we want to work on. So you're more than welcome to go to the board. You can find linked in the document and see all the other items that you are working on. And now back to you, Josh, for distribution.
Thank you, Fabio. Some exciting here side. To wrap things up for today, we can talk about what's coming with distribution. This team is responsible for what we deploy, package, and ship to customers, and how you maintain, install, and take care of GitLab. Not just our customers, but also ourselves with GitLab.com as well. We use the same software and packages for that as well. So we have some exciting improvements here coming from the distribution team. The first one is that we'll be working to add support for encrypting data in transit for Gitaly. And so if you're leveraging the Gitaly service to go ahead and power your Git storage, that traffic will now be secured, again, as it communicated across different nodes in the GitLab cluster. So some exciting improvements there to improve security for our Gitaly solution. We've also made some changes in the previous release that improved some of the permissions and some of the configuration files that were set up as part of our omnibus distribution. And so we made some improvements to further restrict the permissions of those. But we ended up finding some customers who had some interesting configuration options around groups in particular, and how they were handling the user count that was responsible for or assigned to this, and then also what group it was in. And so we ended up, I think, having some issues with those deployments. And so we'll go ahead and do in their past to better improve the handling for specific types of group memberships, configurations, as far as the file permissions go. We'll also be working on changing the Postgres directory naming. What we want to do here is that when we change the Postgres version, we can avoid a restart if we can essentially change the directory naming from major minor and I think the dot release to now just major minor for now. So for example, it'd be like 9.6, for example, for Postgres. And that way, if we bump the minor version or the patch version, we can still do so without having a database restart event. So this will help folks using Omnibus to essentially be able to accept more upgrades from GitLab. We can roll the version of Postgres without requiring restarts of the database, which would be nice for folks, again, running GitLab in a self-managed way. We'll also be working to refresh our GKE Marketplace deployment. So that's the deployment you can see on the Kubernetes Marketplace of GCP. And so that's very exciting for us. One note is that it does contain some confidential information in there, so that is a GitLab only issue. But do note that we look to be updating that deployment option to have the latest version of GitLab, and also to improve the lifecycle management features once we have it deployed. So some great improvements on that mechanism of running GitLab. And finally, for our GitLab Helm chart, which is the way you deploy GitLab on Kubernetes, you can also, we're also working to improve documentation as well as ensure support for both EKS and OpenShift. It does work on EKS today, but our documentation is a little rough, and so we're looking to polish that up. And then we're looking to create essentially the first version of documentation for deploying our GitLab Helm chart on OpenShift. And so that'll be great for customers who are looking to leverage that platform. We'll have a good tutorial on how to, so they can save time and avoid potentially bumping into some things that weren't perhaps documented in the best way possible. So some great improvements there to documentation for our GitLab Helm chart. And with that, we come to the end of what we're planning to do here for 11.5. Thank you so much for attending our live stream. As you can see, we have a bunch of really amazing features here. I'm super excited for this release. And again, we'll see you next month for our kickoff for 11.6. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.